Well, first, let me say, uh, for us in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, like you rightly said, we are working very hard around the clock to implement the various interventions towards achieving, a sustainable food system, but most importantly, also attaining a food secure country. Like you all know, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu considered food security as a top priority of his government. And since last year, we've been on the beat trying to make some changes. Now, this World Food Day is designed for us to look at how to change the narrative in terms of the food situation of our country. And the theme is looking at better lives and better, future for everybody using the instrument of food security. Because food security is when citizens are able to have access to food on a sustainable basis to live a normal, good life. And so we are aware of all the various parameters. And the first thing we need to work out as a country is to make food abundantly available. And in making food abundantly available, it means our production has to go up in terms of the demand for those type of food by our citizens. Now, the major food staples in Nigeria that our citizens rely on for their food need are wheat, rice, maize, sorghum, millet, cassava, and maybe you bring in other root crops like yam, sweet potato, Irish potato, and the like, and then cowpea. So what we have been doing as a ministry is trying to see what do we do to ramp up production through the wet season. And as the wet season is rounding up as we are speaking, of course, we're expecting by November, the dry season period will also kick off. And for the dry season, we have another target, which will take us the next, 4 or 5 before we now expect the new rainy season in 2025. Now, the challenges farmers are facing are usually issues around improved seeds. And we have been working very hard on this to make improved seeds available to Nigerian farmers. And just recently, a week ago, the National Agricultural Extension Liaison Services has national mandate to conduct annual performance, survey for us, both for the wet season and for the dry season. And they've done that of this wet season. They've given us the report, and the report indicates that we are having some marginal increase in the production of these crops in various percentages. And most importantly, there is increased use of improved seeds. Now, we are not also unmindful of the fact that there are challenges like the climate change challenges. That also was, reviewed, and we realized, yes, there are floods that affected at least so many states, but it was not as devastating as the 2022 flooding. And so that is a bit of a reprieve. But remember, these are all phenomena that has to do with climate change, which means we may not have what it takes to stop it. But what we can do is to prepare some resilience planning, and then, plans that will make us to be resilient. And that is what we are doing by emphasizing more of dry season farming. Now, as part of the strategy, again, the Federal Ministry of Water Resources that operate dams and, have that is river basin development authorities, we've established a joint working committee that will enable us to utilize those, irrigable lands that are under their custody for maximum production in the coming dry season. That also is in the offering. Overall, for the next dry season, for example, we are hoping to be able to achieve nothing less than 750,000 hectares of various crops over the next 4 months. But for this wet season, the reports we are getting are encouraging. And so we will say there is hope in the horizon. And remember, we're talking about the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, where we have to continue to work to show to this country that we can make progress on an increasing basis. That is, it has to be gradual because you can't perform magic here. Seasons are seasons. If you crop, when you plant, you have to wait for it to, mature before you can harvest. Now, the other worry is that the post-harvest losses. I think measures that have been put in place are yielding fruit, and the report from the field indicated that I think the post-harvest situation is improving and post-harvest losses are reducing, which means the support we are giving to farmers in terms of herbicide, pesticides, and all those things to control pests and diseases on their farms are also helping farmers to have improved yield. So these are the things we are doing. But let me also quickly add here that one of the areas where we are worried is the drudgery of our farming operations. The situation where farmers are using hoe and cutlass, we know cannot guarantee our food security. And so we are also working as a government to bring on board very, very, innovative mechanization programs. And the combined effect of the mechanization program is we are targeting almost 30,000 tractors, implements, equipment, and so many other, aids, planters, ridgers, harvesters, combined harvesters, so that our Nigerian farming ecosystem will begin to see improvement in terms of its productivity. I'll give you an
Honorable Minister, thank you. Just before you continue and then we escalate our conversation to the studio, you talked about the results from the interventions in the wet season farming, and you described it as encouraging. That's good to hear. But the inflation reading, the latest inflation reading with regards to food input, it's really not encouraging, and it also not encouraging what is relatable at the moment in the market with regards to prices of food. So can you put that into perspective so that we know, and we are hopeful as well, and we join you also in celebrating.
Well, let me add here. You see, we are dealing with a multi-dimensional and more or less a complex system. And you realize that when it comes to food security, we have the mandate to deal with the issues around availability of this food, which is what I've been talking about. And then in terms of the nutritional content, that also falls within our purview of making sure we have different varieties of, produce out there that, our citizens, when they combine, will be able to have nutritious food. Which means, for example, what are our policies on livestock? We are having a new dairy policy, and we are working to have many aggregation centers for milk collection so that we'll be able to have more milk available for different dairy products that our citizens depend on. The same thing, we are working to see how we can improve on the feed so that we're having the junta technology, for example, which is another grass that when farmers plant, they will be able to have more pasture so that livestock owners can begin to have a location where they can depend on their feed. Now, what am I saying? The combined effect of all that we are doing is to guarantee availability of food. But don't forget, we are not operating in an isolated environment. We are operating in a global economy. And the global economy is also impacting on nations. And Nigeria is not an exception in terms of the total availability of food stock globally, total availability of inputs such as minerals or fertilizers, as we call them, agrochemicals and the like. And so the effect of all of this is what perhaps will still make whatever effort we are making to appear as a bit insufficient. But our take here is simple. We will not stop despite all of these challenges. We need to continue to produce. We need to continue to improve on the production and support our farmers, both smallholder, medium, and large-scale producers, so that we will continue to harvest food in country. And remember also that the dynamics also in Nigeria is such that as we are producing, our neighbors are also depending on us. So all of these challenges are taken all together, and I want to say that efforts by government are to ensure that we continue to produce, because when you have more products, then you can even guarantee prices coming down. Remember, when the harvest started, prices of some commodities started coming down. That is the kind of things we're talking about. But for how long is these prices going to stay is another thing altogether. And we are aware of this, and that explains why I said our strategy is to continue to have production back to back. We are working to make sure that all the areas where we can produce during this dry season, we take very huge advantage of it. And efforts right now, the plans are underway, and we are hoping by November this will kickstart. So the combined effect of all of this is what might begin to bring down the prices. And don't forget, when you do survey, some surveys are done maybe some few months back. It will take you some time to even analyze these surveys. And within the period in which the report is done, there are changes in the dynamics, which may not even be captured, because the survey report has a time frame. And so let's not forget about this other perspective. So the point I would like to make here is that we are confident in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security that the strategies we are adopting in terms of making more agri inputs available to farmers such that it gets to them, these are the strategies that will enable us to produce. And we believe we have the land, we have the arable land that we can produce. All that is there is for us to support farmers, let them get this input at the right time so that they can do what they know how to do best. And some of the things I'm talking about, we'll begin to see the impact more, maybe by this dry season, and most importantly, by the next oncoming rainy season, when we hope, for example, most of the mechanization tools will have been in country. We're already getting delivery. Some items have arrived in Lagos, but of course, you don't take them piecemeal. You have to allow everything to come in. We're aware there are shipments on the sea already towards all of this mechanization program. So for me, I think the strategy we are adopting is...
Honorable Minister, thank you very much for all you've reeled out. But so that we don't lose the moment, what are the items on this list?
The list for the mechanization, or...
Expecting.
I'm not expecting. Expecting that you talked about, what's on the list?
The list of mechanization.
No. The list of items you are expecting that you said you are expecting in Lagos at the moment.
We are talking about tractors. We are talking about all the the reachers, the harrow, the disc, and all the other the cart that comes with tractors. And then we are talking about planters. We are talking about hand tillers, and all the other types of mechanization tools like harvesters that are part of the mechanization package that we are working on right now. So the John Deere component is there. The what do they call it? Belarus component is there, and then we have the Greener Hope mechanization program. All of these have different components or different quantity of mechanization tools that falls within this, including spare parts. Because what we are doing here this time around is not just to bring mechanization tools. How do you train people who can be able to use it? Because these are all modern mechanization tools. That is a part of the package, to train young Nigerians who will be able to operate these mechanization tools maximally and to help farmers to achieve their productivity.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Maintenance, spare parts will be available for